Yeah. Okay. Perfect. Okay. I read it. My name is Richard Martinez. Okay. Okay. So Garifuna Settlement Day, if I could say in one word, I would just say resilience. Because a lot of times in my culture, I see everyone look forward to the 19th of November and Garifuna Settlement Day for all of the festivities. But I believe it's more than that. It goes to show our resilience as a people because, you know, you it took us a long, treacherous time to get to this point, to get to Belize and Honduras and Guatemala. It took a long time, and there are so many of our ancestors that died along the way, and the ones that did make it managed to preserve the culture despite all of the despite being not always being supported all the time. There were some of us that weren't allowed to be teachers, and there's a lot of things that went into our survival that could have stopped us. It could have, but yet we remain resilient. And the 19th of November every year is a reminder of that. So that's why I would say that's what it means to me. Yeah. A personal experience, I have to say how I view Garfield so many. Okay, so a personal experience, I have to say around that time, the Euromay, like just the reenactment of our arrival, it definitely changed my perspective because at first I used to be confused, like primary school watching it, even like in the beginning of high school watching the reenactment of our arrival and everything. I was kind of confused. I was like, okay, but there's so much more to it than just being in a boat with drums and leaves and all of that. It's so much more than that. Like I said, you know, it shows, like I said, it goes right back to the journey. And it goes back to, us being on one island and then we were exiled the driveway. And so, you know, coming a long way to a whole new country. There were people that were pregnant, people that were sick, and being able to still pass on this rich culture and heritage throughout, after hundreds of years, and still being here. I think the Yurme really showed me the strength of my people. And like I said, I like to use this word, but just, being resilient. And like I said, even the music during the performances and the reenactment is really like, once I heard the words and, them saying thank you to, all of the leaders and all the pioneers over the years, I'm like, wow, this is so much more than just a boat ride or just a regular celebration. This is, history repeating itself literally over, every year. So that's definitely one experience. Just being able to see it, it really speaks to me. Yes, yes. Ooh, can you repeat the question? Let me. Okay, there's so many, honestly, and it's so to me, it's sometimes I feel bad because there are so many other traditions that I did not know about. Some of them I just learned about last year and over time. And it's very sad because some of the knowledge isn't being passed down. But one tradition, um, I don't really see it on my mom's side of the family because, a lot of times they're like, oh, we don't practice that anymore or whatever. But I think it's a beautiful thing to keep up and continue to pass down that knowledge, because, if we don't know our culture, well, do we truly know our identity? And so one practice I have to say is the one, what would I say? Is it the mass? Okay, I would have to say there's one practice that is called the bathing of the dead. And I think it also coincides with what does it there's like a mass every year for a loved one that has passed, and just, the drummings, and it's not like a typical drumming, it's one that you really, interact with this being, interact with this person. And like I said, my mom's side of the family, they don't practice it, they deem it as demonic and whatever, but I think it's so beautiful because, like I said, it's our culture, it's who we are. And just being able to give thanks to the people that have us in this situation today, have us here today. I think that's really beautiful. So I have to say, I don't know the exact word for it, but I know there's the bathing of the dead. There's also another tradition that is called the Agoni. I would love to be in that actually. I would love to. Like it's like a spiritual cleanse, and you just go back to the sea. Literally the sea holds our story, and we just go back, and there's a bunch of like protocols that we have to follow, of course, but those are definitely ones that has shaped my perspective. It just goes to show that you know we have our way of healing spiritually. We have our way of healing, like when it comes to medicine, like literally everything. It's right here in our culture. So that's why it goes to show that we can depend on ourselves. That's what it shows. So yeah. 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 Yes. Yeah. And I like that you said giving back to the earth because that's essentially what it is. Like there's so many steps to it, and across, of course, Belize and Honduras, Guatemala, all different Garifuna communities have their own way of practicing things. And I think that's so beautiful. Like honestly, I know we also have the Dogo, which I hate the perception of it. Like everyone deems it as, some sort of witchcraft or something that is devilish, and I'm just like, it's our culture, hello, like, and I learned about it because my grandmother, she had her own temple. And I remember every year we would go there for the summer because that's usually around the time when they have this the ceremony. And children were never allowed inside, so I would just be outside, my dad would be inside, and I'm hearing the drumming, but I'm like, why I can't go inside? They're just drummings. But over time I learned that it was another way of interacting with our ancestors, and giving back to them. There's a lot of myths out there, and I used to be ignorant and be like, oh my gosh, is that true? But it really isn't. It is not true. Do I hear people say that, oh, you are turned into an animal and a whole bunch of stuff, and it's really not like that. And it's sad that, over time you can see that people, our own Garifuna people, they don't know what their culture truly entails. And yeah, exactly. It was always exactly. It was always towards healing. Like, I don't know, but yeah. How I believe it helps to preserve the culture and identity. That's such a good question because, it's something that we can see all around us. Like around that time, that's when you see all of the competitions. That's when everyone bring out their best Garifuna outfit. And, I actually, a teacher of mine, she really inspires me because since the beginning of the school year last year around August, I always saw her with her Garifuna outfit. Like she has an outfit for every occasion, every day. And I was like, I want to be like you. Because, it shouldn't be limited to just November or November 19th. But the 19th of November, Garifuna Settlement Day, that's when like I said, our story gets retold. And we get to see the reenactment of our arrival. We have the service in the morning. Before the parade, we have the reenactment, we have the church service, and that's when we see street vendors lining up with all of the different food. And not even just on that day, but even leading up to that day, you will see all of the competitions. You will see all of the groups. They try to find their best, most meaningful song to present, and I think, and it's always a lot of young people as well. That's what I really admire. When it comes to the music, we see a lot of young people being active in that area. And like I said, it's so much more than just jumping behind the big truck when the time for parade. It's literally about cultural preservation and remembering who we are, because, and like I said, of course, honoring those who came before us, because if it wasn't for Thomas Vincent Ramos or Joseph Chatoyer, we wouldn't be here, and we wouldn't have the day that we call Garifuna Settlement Day. And so that's why I wanted to make a video about it, because a lot of people don't understand the cultural significance, and we just see that, with a bash today, that all everybody know about. And so that's what I really want to highlight. Absolutely. Yes, of course, of course. Yes, thank you. Yes. Oh my gosh.